So we're going to be talking about AI in commerce. AI is everywhere, right? You can't escape it. We hear about it every day. But most of us are in tech or tech adjacent or business, so it's pretty normal to us to think about AI. One of the things I find really interesting about the conversation I think that we're going to have today is that I believe that commerce is almost always the vehicle. I'm gonna say it. It's 99% of the time. It's probably not true, but it's a large percentage of the time the method that the average consumer gets involved with new technology is through the commerce medium. That's the one thing that pretty much everybody does, right? So I'm excited to have that conversation. And so with that, let me introduce our first guest. Our first guest is the head of shopping AI at the head of Microsoft AI shopping. And I've known him for a little bit. He's spoken at our events in the past. He's been doing things in retail and commerce and brand for a long time as well. So I think he has some really interesting perspective. And so with that, please welcome to the stage, Larry Colagiovanni. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you.
All right. And next to the stage, I'd like to welcome someone who's also spoken at our events in the past and also a part of a big enterprise here in the Pacific Northwest, one of the lead architects working on GenAI at T-Mobile, Daniel Mutch. Thank you, Daniel. Welcome, welcome. All right, I'm going to put my trusty headphones on real quick just to make sure everybody sounds good. And feel free to adjust your mics a teeny bit, and we'll have at it. So if it starts to fall, you can just tighten that thing down there. And
so we can see what we look like.
I know.
That's exactly it.
Myself for the whole hour.
I got a little screen right here in front for those that aren't aware. So with that, Larry, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody, and we'll kick it off from there.
Cool. So my name's Larry Colagiovanni, and I lead the shopping team as part of Microsoft AI. So that's all of our experiences across Bing, the Edge browser, as well as Microsoft Copilot. And then I've worked in the commerce space for over 15 years. Everywhere from big companies like Microsoft and eBay, and then also was at a startup called Decide.com that eBay acquired as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Larry. Daniel.
Wow, Larry, that's some super sweet experience. I like that. So my name's Daniel Mutch. Why I'm here, I built my first language model 30 years ago, and I'll tell you about that if you want. And I created my first app with a modern language model about 9 years ago. And about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, I was one of T-Mobile's first hires for GenAI. And so now I'm one of the lead architects working in our Intent CX program, which is where we use GenAI to sort of enable or superpower our customer-facing capabilities. So I'm working on use cases around customer care. How do we take care of customers better and with less friction? How do we enable commerce through different channels using GenAI? And in the future, how do we take care of our customers proactively using GenAI, AI, and ML? And so excited to be a part of this with Jonathan.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, guys, for joining us. There was a requirement to be on this panel, and you had to have a beard. So that's why we all have beards. No, just kidding. It just worked out that way. But yeah, so just to kick us off right away.
And Jonathan says, next time I come back, I got to shave
Yeah,
my
that's
head
right.
suit.
Larry and I
That's
both
actually
are.
why I wore a hat. So I could add a little difference.
Just
to mix it up a little bit. So.
So the way I always love hosting events and having conversations is, almost pretending like you are not here for just a second. And like, what would the conversation be if the three of us were having dinner, just hanging out? What would that look like? So if we talk over each other or if someone interrupts each other, that's totally fine. Again, it's meant to be all in conversation. So, with that, when we think about what AI means, I'd love to just kick it off with what I started with when I was saying, hey, I think of AI as entry point commerce as an entry point for AI. Just curious if, what do you think about that? And, either with the work that you're doing or just in the broader opportunity.
You want to start, Larry?
Go for it.
Okay. All right. Well, here's an idea about AI that might not be super popular. So I'm out there, building stuff for real that's getting released to customers, and maybe about 10% of it is AI magic, but a lot of it is the same stuff that a lot of people probably already know how to do. It's user stories and sprints and API layers and good user experience, lots of testing, automated testing, CI/CD. So AI today, AI can't run your whole commerce. In my experience, AI can't run your whole commerce experience. Instead, you need to build a lot of great digital commerce capabilities, and then you can add AI on top to reduce friction. Now, Larry, maybe you're going to tell me I'm wrong, but I'd love to pass it to you and hear some perspective from you as well.
I think for me, yes, I agree. I think commerce is a great gateway for AI, and I think there's two different reasons for me. From a consumer perspective, we buy, shop, use products every day. And it's actually one of the interesting things, with some of the stuff that we do with Copilot today, a lot of what folks are coming and asking for is actually seeking for advice or seeking information. So it's not necessarily hey, I want a red dress, but it's, hey, I just bought this makeup. How do I use it? And so I think commerce is so encompassing beyond just the shopping, but actually you have all these products in your life. And so I think, it's a great entry point from a consumer perspective. And then I think from a business perspective, it's a great way to make money, right? And so at the end of the day, if businesses are looking to go do something in AI, commerce is a highly monetizable space. And so I think it's also a reason that a lot of, both big and small companies tends to gravitate, because there's, a pretty easy way to go and make money there.
Most definitely. So let's go right into, tell us how you are each approaching AI in your businesses. Let us know, what are you working on, or what are your roles in your organizations?
Can I take this one?
Yeah, AI touches everything of what I do. And it's not just from an experience perspective. So at my team, like I said, we own all the experiences on the Microsoft canvases related to shopping, but we're using AI everything from what the end consumer sees to how is the model actually reasoning on what to respond to how do we go and actually build out a catalog that we can surface, and how do we personalize all those results. So anything and everything in between, we're leveraging AI across the board. I think the other thing that I've personally been spending a lot of time looking at and thinking about is what does the future of product management look like in the context of AI as well. And so actually this week right now, we're doing a hackathon with my product team and also our design and our user research teams. And while I hope we come up with the next $1 billion idea from Microsoft shopping, what I told the team is I want to know everything that you know about all the tools that you're experimenting with. And I want to get their perspectives on how do you think we'll end up working together in the next 6 to 12 months, what things might stay the same and what things, might be different. And then kind of related to that is, I think engineering, there's a lot of standard metrics around velocity and all those different things. And part of what I've also been pushing on is how do you measure, right, the effectiveness of a PM or, AI adoption in the context of product management. So anyway, part of it's product related, but a lot of it for me is also really just thinking about the discipline of product management and how's that evolve over the next 12 to 24 months.
Yeah, wow. That was a pretty great answer, Larry, in terms of thinking about how AI is changing how we work on the software development life cycle. And when I look at kind of our approach and how we're using AI to make experiences better, I think what's really important is just really great for us. It's really great questions and answers. And it was really interesting. You said a lot of people want to know how to use the products.
Yep.
We've got Larry and I out on the balcony. We're talking about data. What kind of data are we seeing from the conversations that we're already having on our platforms? And one of the things that I was sharing with him is from our data, a lot of what people are looking for, similar to what he said, is just simple Q&A. They've bought something, They want to know how to use it. It's hard to find either it's hard to do the sequence of steps, or they can't find the documentation. They can't find the documentation that is right for their specific use case. So we've had a lot of great NPS or consumer satisfaction just from looking at the data about the questions people are asking and then coming up with really great answers to those questions. So that's kind of level one. Actually getting into the commerce we're working on, but it turns out it's pretty challenging. I mean, particularly in my business where you sell devices and plans together, and the kinds of things, like there's a few things we sell, like maybe some AirPods, that it's discrete and it's a pretty easy thing. But a lot of the other stuff we sell, the plan is entangled with the phones, and then that's entangled with a number of lines and your geographic location and what carrier you're moving from. And so it becomes this really complex problem to solve. And it turns out too, when you look at the data, like less than 10% of the people are actually coming to this experience to do that. So we're starting by looking at the data and handling, the big use cases first, and using AI to make it really frictionless for people. So I think if I had to pick a theme, it would be frictionless. Take something that was kind of hard to do, it was kind of awkward, and maybe we can use AI to make it really easy and effortless. You get your answer quicker, and you say, that was a good experience. I like working with this company.
I'm smiling because people come to my product to ask how to buy his product, and we're one level removed, and we have to figure out how to answer their questions. No, it's all good. No, that's part of we're an aggregator.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're trying to sell T-Mobile, AT&T, and we're one level removed from the data, right, and all the richness that you have. And so I think it's one of the things that makes my job interesting, but also challenging. Is how do we go and help someone when we may not be, the authoritative source? So.
We should talk.
Yeah,
after
I was going to
this.
say we'll go back out to the balcony chat.
Do a little pilot or something
exactly.
like that.
So two things that I want to touch on with what you both said. One, I love the fact that you were mentioning the product management function and how you're using it organizationally. I'm a product manager. I've been doing product, my whole life, and as a founder, you find yourself doing that as well. I find myself I treat my AI like a junior product manager in a way, right? Hey, feed these requirements, or feed it that information and learn from that. And then similarly, I find myself almost treating it like a manual when I need to find something that I'm trying to do. Yep. Hey, how do I do XYZ, with this product? Or, I can't, whether that's a software product or a physical product for that matter. I was hey, how do I reset this item? Instead of looking through the instruction manual or going through the website, I just find myself asking the AI to do it, and it's almost always spot on.
Yeah, I do that too, man.
Yeah. So when we think of one of the things that I've been personally really interested in on the AI side on the shopping front is called the human behavior aspect of it, and how people are using it to shop. I am 100% believer that we're all going to one day have these AI interfaces and we'll communicate there. But you have some people saying things like, by 2030, you're not going to use the browser anymore, which I don't think will happen. I think we're further away from that. But I'm just curious on both of your thoughts of this interconnectivity of commerce and shopping in the AI experience, and what you all think that might look like. And I'll share what I think as well after you.
It's a great question. I'll just take one aspect of that I think is really interesting to me. And it's funny, I was telling Larry I did a project with Microsoft some years ago before I joined T-Mobile. It was kind of my intro to the space. But I think one thing that's really important for us is multi-channel. And that's a buzzword, but what that means is if I'm on my web browser and I look up some information, and then I come into a store and I maybe talk to a virtual assistant while I'm waiting in line or interact with the kiosk, and then I talk to a person in real life, and then maybe if I'm a current customer, there's some telemetry from the product I have. Can all those things be connected somehow so I'm not constantly reintroducing myself? I had to call maybe a cable provider earlier today for my mother-in-law's cable. But, as I got passed from person to person, I was re-authenticating myself, re-providing my name and birth date. When they already had the phone number, I called in and had already given it to the previous person, and this is frustrating. This is friction. So one of the themes that we talk about with AI as we build it forward, we're building it multi-channel. We want it to be aware of different channels. We want to build our state management is a term we use. We want to build our state management that it's accessible from all these different channels, towards the goal of kind of giving this seamless experience. And so to kind of loop that back to your question, Jonathan, like in the future, you might shop sometimes through a Chat GPT like interface. You might shop sometimes through the Target app. You might shop sometimes in person at a Nordstrom experience center, and you might shop sometimes through an Instagram page. And I think companies that do it really well will find a way for all those channels to talk together and kind of give you a seamless experience. So you don't keep reintroducing yourself, re-explaining yourself, reselecting preferences.
Yeah, because to that point, it's if it's like the way people talked about omnichannel in the first kind of version of omnichannel, right? Is you have that synced communication or that synced cookie layer in a way. But yeah, you don't want to introduce yourself to the AI every single time you're going through, and this notion of you are the same customer throughout. So then the shopping experience, recognizing that you're that same customer all throughout.
Yeah, I mean, on my side, just to build on what Daniel said, I think it will continue to be multi-channel, but the big thing for me is it'll be multimodal. I think that's one of the things that I'm most excited about is, I think folks naturally went and, do a bunch of stuff with text today and have been building a lot of experiences there. But I mean, one of the things for me is I've just seen a lot of people are trying to replicate like shopping just in text. So you type some stuff, you get 4 products back, you type some other stuff, but then you can't see it. And there's so much cool stuff. I just saw a demo today that's kind of taking like virtual try on to a whole new dimension, which is basically like, how do you actually look walking around in that outfit? How does that outfit flow on you, right, as you're doing different things? And so if you look at that, if you look at what folks like, Amazon are doing to be able to have audio reviews, right? Like, why do you have to read it? Like, why couldn't you just go ahead and like get it to talk to you? And so to me, that's the biggest thing. I don't know exactly what it will end up looking like, but I think we will see a rapid adoption beyond just kind of these text-based interfaces to being able to look at voice, to be able to look at vision. And I think that that's ultimately going to help shape like the future of commerce over the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it was like 2016-ish. Apple had come out with this whole notion of apps inside of the iMessage. Remember that?
Yeah.
And a lot of that had to do with commerce and being able to transact. And I think really where it missed the mark at that time was, there wasn't the AI that we have today to really make that function. Yeah. And so, Shopify and ChatGPT, for example, just announced that they're doing this agentic commerce initiative together. And there's going to be, I'm sure there's tons of other people doing this, but that's just one that has been made public. And so what I find really fascinating, interesting about that is, kind of your point is like, hey, like, yes, I'm searching for a red dress and you find a red dress. That's great. But then when things can get suggested to you, hopefully in a non-invasive way, like you're talking about an environment or scenario or situation, and maybe because it recognizes that you had been looking for something in the past, is like, hey, you had been looking for this thing in the past. I find it working like that for me when I do product things. Mm-hmm. So I can definitely see that in a commerce context as well. I'm really curious for when, and I know there's a few people working on this, but I don't think they're doing it great just yet. But just simple AI search on commerce sites. So, when you're on a brand retailer site, and searching there is when you get presented, with these products and with these items, that will fit you. TikTok has been doing something interesting that I've noticed recently, where if you are on a page and you, I think if you press it or you kind of hover on it, it'll almost take like a screenshot of the product so, and it's not even the product because it doesn't recognize. So let's say I have a black shirt on right now and it says, it says Niftmint on it. And so if there was a video of me and you pressed on it, then all of a sudden it'll show you all these other images of other people wearing black shirts. So it's not commerce related yet, but I think that's kind of the next enablement is like, oh, hey, Jonathan's wearing this. You would also look good in that shirt. You can transact here.
Yeah, no. And I mean, I think like on the multimodal bit, I mean, that's one of the things like with us that we're really pushing on too is, we're fortunate at Microsoft because we have a little thing called Windows and Edge. And so part of what we're also looking at is like we can be shopping alongside of you. Right. And so there's some neat things that we've been launching where if you're on Amazon, like you can open up Copilot and Copilot can help you shop. So, I mean, in the TikTok example, people don't look at TikTok on desktop, but I mean, if you did, like imagine being able to have your AI companion shopping alongside with you and just being able to ask, hey, like I really love that shirt, right, that influencer's wearing. Like, can you help me find options that would look great on me? Yeah. So I think that's another thing. It'll be interesting to see as, Perplexity comes out with comment and things like that. Like, how do they push the envelope of helping kind of shop alongside with you and helping you interact with a lot of that content in kind of new and novel ways as well?
Definitely.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about multimodal. So true story. On the way here, I was stuck in traffic and I remembered some Amazon shopping that I had to do. So I'm in traffic and I'm driving and I got the app open and I'm doing lots of clicks. And don't worry, I didn't have an accident and I bought everything that I needed to buy. But Larry, hearing you talk about multimodal, I think how much better would it be if I could have done every single thing I did through a voice command? Yeah. Why don't I have that app open? I describe what I wanted to do. To your point, yeah, maybe listen to some of those reviews in audio. Yep. I mean, there's no reason with today's tech and a whole lot of engineering, that could be a totally voice experience. And in the car, for example, that'd be a lot safer for me.
Yes, no, totally. It's funny. I'm not trying to like push our product, but we actually we have the ability to generate podcasts on demand. Yeah. And so it was funny, actually. I generated a podcast on the way over here about like the future of commerce, just to kind of hear like what folks are saying, but kind of that piece. Like you could imagine it related to commerce as well, right? Like if you're into fashion, like, what's the latest things that are coming out today? And so it's just going to be, I think, yet another way to be able to, consume content and shop.
Yeah. I think, I totally agree with what both of you are saying. I feel like sometimes people might have a hard time thinking through that. We're like, well, do I really want to talk through it? And so the example I always like to give on that is something slightly adjacent, and that's as simple as like ordering an Uber, right? So right now to order an Uber, you pull out the app, you put the address, there's no reason why that can't be a voice command. Absolutely. Say like, hey, find me an Uber to go to Bellevue to pick me up in 5 minutes or whatever, right? And then, so it's like, oh, wow, that's something that I'm moving and acting. But again, these types of behaviors that we find just slowly progress into, different instances. And so the thing I always like to say is, what lens are you looking at it through? If you're looking at it through the lens of right now, today, like, okay, like maybe that's a little strange. I would be asking for all these things all at once. But if you look at this through the lens of even a year from now or 2 years from now, it starts to become more and more normal.
Yeah, I think one of the other things we've talked a lot about, and you mentioned agentic commerce, is like we're trying to figure out how do you take the hard parts of shopping out, but like how do you create more time and space for like the joy of shopping, right? Like a lot of stuff that folks talk about, agentic commerce, like it makes it feel like shopping is entirely a chore. And for some people it is, right? But for a lot of people it's not. Like I have people on my team, it's literally what they wake up and do every day. Like it gives them joy. And it's interesting as you see, like as I see and read some of the comments from consumers on some of the automated bit, it was like, that was fast, but it also felt soulless. And I got no joy out of the experience.
Wow.
And so I think that's going to be another interesting thing with this. Like I do think AI is going to help make it more efficient. I think it's going to help take some of the hard parts out. It's going to help take some of the mundane parts out. But I think the folks that are really going to excel in this space is to figure out like what are those parts, but also again, like for the people that love shopping, right? Like how do you not take that joy out of it for them? And like I said, create space for them to do that.
It's super great points.
Yeah, I really resonate with that, Larry. I know some people that that just love shopping. They love the experience. They're happy walking around Bellevue Square for an hour, even if they don't buy anything,
Yep.
you know, or like all those fancy casinos in Las Vegas where they have the big shopping sections. And then also even in the space I work in with customer experience, I had a company call me the other day to let me know about an issue with my account. But the person that I talked to was so nice and so polite and so genuine, you know, that I felt better after the call, right? And if I had just gotten like a text alert or something like that, I would have been annoyed about the account issue, but I wouldn't have had that good experience of the company. So there's got to be some way that you kind of keep some heart and soul and connection in it.
Yeah, no, I love that.
Yeah, and to level set for everybody too is, you know, sometimes when we're in a conversation like this, we're thinking about shopping and we're like, oh, you mean, you know, buying clothes or buying purses or buying, you know, something exotic. No, shopping is going to the grocery store, right? You know, shopping is, you know, going to a restaurant, you know, buying some of your daily, you know, your daily activities. Like these are all things that you're doing in transacting in commerce. It's something that you pretty much do almost every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I mean, you touched on it a little bit too. I mean, on the human component, I think it's something else to like that we're actively thinking about is I think shopping in the past has been very product centric, right? Like you go to the Amazon homepage, like it throws stuff at you. You like type in a search box, it like throws products back at you. And something we've been talking about is like how do we start to prioritize like people over products? Right, in the human beings, and like even, you know, like with the whole groceries, like it's spot on, but there's also like there's so much else that's going on like with that person. And so like when we talk about holidays, like naturally if you work in shopping, you think about gifting, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna go build a gifting experience. But like if you take a step back for someone, like what are they doing? Like, yes, they probably have to do gifting, but like maybe they're hosting a dinner. Like if they're hosting a dinner, like maybe part of that is meal planning, maybe part of it's decorating the house. Maybe it's like, hey, if I'm hosting, like I want to look great, right? Like it's a good opportunity to be able to splurge. And so I think that is one thing that AI will help, like these things that I think when you build out traditional shopping sites tend to be very like transactional, very serial, like you go buy this product, then you go buy that product. But the reality of like most of our shopping journeys are very complex.
Yeah.
Right. And they span multiple categories. And I think that that's another thing that AI is really going to be able to help out with, not just in retail shopping, but also in travel and services, is to be able to do a better job kind of taking care of the whole person and all of the different things that they need to do when it comes to, you know, some occasion or some life event or something like that.
Yeah, and to that point, you know, what you're really talking about there is the brand has opportunity to truly engage with the consumer, right, in a way that they haven't been able to before. When we think about today, at least, consumer engagement is typically just transacting. To your point, right? It's like, hey, every brand is intimately aware of the customer visiting their site and transacting, but what takes place, you know, before to lead up to that, or even after, is very much lost.
Yeah, that's a great point. And then, Jonathan, I talked a little bit about being proactive. And so that's the theme that we want to unravel with AI is how can we look at all the signals we have from a customer from every point in their lifespan and really be proactive with good interventions for them. Like, for example, hey, this phone, you just passed the 24-month on this phone. It means you're eligible for an upgrade. You know, can I help you with that upgrade? Or we noticed that you had this kind of service interruption. Here's when it's going to resolve itself. Where we've unlocked a new satellite service for people and messaging people proactively about how to use that. And so what it's really all about is, can we use the LLMs that we have in our hands today are able to intuitively match patterns and intuitively grok large amounts of unstructured data in a way that our previous tools didn't. So how do we take it, expose it to all this unstructured data, and then let it make better recommendations, better next actions than we have previously? And then, oh, by the way, we can also customize those next best actions a lot more effortlessly than we could in the past. You know, in the past, it always had to be a super generic message, but now we have the ability to generate tailored messages or tailored images for people. I mean, hypothetically, we're not doing it yet because, the technology is kind of out there and you might get some unexpected results, but we can't be too far away from doing it.
No, I love that. Like, there's one of the things that we talk a lot about, like my ideal is there's no reason when someone goes to a shopping site that every product title and product description shouldn't be personalized to you. Not just the products that you see, but like based off of what we know, Daniel, about you, like you have a family, you have kids, like whatever it ends up being, like if there's some recommendation in there for a new toy or something like that, it should be, hey, like we think this would be great for your kid and here's why, versus kind of the generic stuff. And so like I know some folks that are experimenting with that, and we are, but I think that's not so far in the distant future, where every shopping site that you go to is personalized to that next level.
That's cool.
I totally agree. And I think even from like the model content, like the models in the advertisements or in the pictures themselves, right? Like, often if you see someone that looks like you or that you resonate with, you're going to be a lot more willing to or more likely to purchase the product than if someone, like, wait, like that person looks nothing like me or doesn't, I can't identify with that person, right? So having not just contextualized products, but contextualized people, whether they're generated by AI or not, that resonate with the person visiting the site.
Yeah,
it's a great call.
So I want to open it up to the audience here in just a second, but before we do, I'd love to talk about something that I care a lot about, which is brand IP, and just how you all think that this will kind of play a factor. So we just released a new product for Niftmint called Mint Loops, and in part of that I created a test store because we have to have a test store for when we put it on the shopping platform. So anyways, I just made up this luxury handbag company. I called it Johnny Blanco, and I put these product image. I think it'd be a great name for a handbag. And I basically, put these. I go, hey, I need to create 10 handbags. What are the most popular handbag description wise, right? I'm like, great, okay, and I'm like, I want to have it be blacks and gold and leather and etc. Anyways, it generated all these amazing bags, and that's how I created my test store, is all of these fake bags. Well, obviously that AI learned from something, right? And these bags look pretty darn good. Obviously they don't look quite as good as a handmade luxury bag, but for what it was, it looks fantastic. I think that we're very close to what I like to call a Napster moment. So does anybody here remember Napster?
Yeah, you bet.
No, I don't. I don't remember that. I was too young.
Good answer.
So when Napster came out, you had all these very large record labels who did not care at all. They didn't care at all that Napster was out and people were burning and downloading music, in this manner, until they realized, holy smokes, this is actually affecting our bottom line. We do care. And then that's when the record labels really cared about it. It caused this evolution of how we, consume content today, right? I think we're at a similar moment when it comes to brands and IP. Is like, because I actually, when I was at the Shop Talk conference, I can't tell you how many brands I talked to, and I said, hey, what are your concerns about AI using your IP? And every single one of the people I talked to, mind you, this was March, so like this might be old news by now, but in March of 2025, and we're currently in June of 2025, every brand I talked to either said it's something that we haven't even thought about, or it's not a top priority right now. And I'm like, that should be a priority for you. That should be there. So just curious what your all thoughts on IP, brand IP, and where you think that what happens next.
After you.
Well, it's a really interesting question, Jonathan. You think about authenticity. So something that we've just seen on the internet today. Hopefully, has everyone here seen the TV commercials or fake TV commercials made with Google VO3?
Yeah,
it's this amazing lifelike, and some of them have already been made into TV commercials. It's so lifelike, it's so real. But I think about that lifelike video that was trained on data from the internet, and let's talk about handbags. That was trained on data of thousands of real life handbags from real life companies. So, what happens if somebody generates some video making fun of something and the people in it have a handbag and they're doing something negative, and that handbag is a Gucci handbag or an Hermes handbag, maybe not with the exact brand, but with that kind of image. So I think there's going to be this authenticity issue. It's one thing to just copy the design, but there's going to be a ton of accidental copying that happens because these AI capabilities that we use to create art and music and videos have been trained on the corpus of real world data. So I think that's a big deal. A related topic too is like authenticating people. We're just starting to hear about people using voice fakes and things like that to defraud people of money, and that's kind of a related authenticity issue. So, in a world where anything can look or sound like anything else, how do you tell what's authentic and what's not? I'm probably kind of playing into your theme there, but
yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a great question. I partly had you go first so I could think about it some more. I think it is important for brands, right, to protect the assets that they have, and a bunch of different ways that they can go through and do that. And like I said, it could, like we work with a lot of high-end luxury brands, and they're massive concern around their brands being tarnished because of how folks are using their content or maybe misusing their content and kind of what it might be attributed to. So I think it's something that brands absolutely should be thinking about. I think the thing that I've found in reality from talking to brands right now, I think the existential moment seems to be a bit more of like, oh my gosh, all of these folks are now shopping in some other place.
Yeah.
And so I think, and starting to see traffic go down, like organic and some of those different pieces. And so I think that's kind of a like hair on fire moment for brands right now is they're just seeing either some of their traffic shift or they're seeing more of their traffic come from some of these different conversational shopping experiences. And so, right or wrong, I think that's, at least as I talk to retailers and brands, that's a lot of what their focus is on, is like, how do I show up there? And if someone is going and searching for one of our products, how do I make sure that it's visible there so that they can discover us?
Yeah. Well, and to that point, there's only so many priorities that you can manage at the same exact time. And so, yeah, if hair's on fire, you gotta tackle that first, and you'll figure out the rest afterwards. Naturally, obviously, you both know what I do, and so for those that don't know what I do, is we when we create these digital twins, we create a tokenized version of that because we believe that that's a way to be and showcase its most authentic aspect of it, because you're creating like a one-to-one record. So I have like this whole talk that I've done a handful of times, how I say that I think AI has only proven the case for the need for tokenization of creating that. But we'll pause on that for now because we're talking more about just strictly AI and commerce. But I really do think that that's things that people need to think about, whether it's even authenticating at a human level or a product level. Essentially this like digital twin component to that becomes really important. Okay, so I'd love to open it up to any questions that anybody here might have. Yeah, go ahead. And I'll repeat your question so that way we can pick it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the question is around, essentially like applying the UX aspect to it. So, being fully aware of what the customer needs almost before they even know what they need, right?
Yeah, and I think there's kind of like, to me, maybe two different pieces of it. I think there's just the basics. I'm going to run out of paper towels next week. And like, how do we anticipate that and say, hey, you're about to run out of milk and paper towels and everything. Like, we went ahead and took care of putting in, another order for you. So I think that's one piece. I think another thing that, I mentioned before when it comes to people over products that we're trying to figure out is, like, how do you build more emotionally intelligent AI companions? And I think with that, like, unless I actually get to know you, right? And like what your needs are, the things that you like how you want to be, kind of nudged or prompted, or like what do you want to find kind of serendipitously versus not, I think is a key piece. And so I think that's one of the interesting things for me when I look at a lot of the like AI chatbots out there. They still feel very transactional. Mm-hmm. Like it's very information based. And so I think like I'm completely with you. And I think the folks that will really excel in the shopping space and the commerce space will really lean into that emotional quotient and understanding what folks want. And like I said, the kind of just go buy toilet paper stuff will be the easy stuff. But I think if you can really understand what's and can anticipate that, I think that will help elevate experiences to that next level.
Yeah, I think it's a really great comment, like with the subscription. And I know that there's been efforts in the past, like for a while, Amazon had this button that you could put in your laundry room and you just would tap it and it would refill your detergent for you. Right. And it was a really nice idea, but they discontinued it, I think for a reason. But there's other scenarios that might be helpful, like when you're a customer, at least in my line of business, you often will know someone's birthday and you might know the other account holders' birthdays. So, I mean, maybe it'd be nice to get a reminder, hey, your wife's birthday's coming up, upgrade this or upgrade that. Or the other thing is, maybe you always go out of the country at Christmas every year. So, here's a reminder to check your international rate plan. That's not so important today, right? Because a lot of phone companies have pretty good international roaming, but that used to be a big thing, oh shoot, got to make sure I check my rate plan before I go, out of country for a while. So I think if we really thought about it, there probably is some really nice proactivity that we could build for users. And these kind of agentic systems could be really good at it. I'm kind of curious to turn it back on you. Are there any, other than just like the monthly restock, is there any scenarios that you think about for that you think are really interesting?
I think it's more in line with what you were saying. Very, like almost like notifications, right? Because there's a lot of things that we forget. We're human, we make a lot of mistakes, but I would probably say more for like bill paying, right? Anticipating that this might sound silly, that rent is due, or I use T-Mobile. T-Mobile, it's due, or you want to switch a plan. Like anticipating your behavior before you kind of do it yourself, because they know your spending habits, or they know your thought patterns. I mean, that sounds a little bit controlling from a technological standpoint, but it's more like in the line of like notifications, right? Just sort of like pushing, maybe like push notifications or something like that. But I'm thinking more so like what you're saying, right?
Yeah, well, you made a great point, right? When you say thought patterns, right, that sounds pretty creepy. Yeah. But in reality, like when you live in a house and a family and your loved one says, oh, hey, you always forget X when you go and do Y. You always forget your water bottle when you go to the soccer game. And they kind of read your mind like that. It can be really valuable. So there's probably something that's creepy. And then there's probably something like, oh man, you saved, thanks, ChatGPT. You saved my butt, right?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Michael from Curie. Perplexity, Gemini, and OpenAI have released language models that have a shopping component. And so as you look for advice with these conversational assistants, they can show search results from various different e-commerce sites and products. However, the click-through rate of these formats are significantly lower than that of traditional search. So how do you see that as like a problem, and how can you see e-commerce being able to overcome that issue?
It's interesting. We actually see higher conversion through our conversational interfaces, like actual conversion at the end of the day. And so one of the things we're finding is we're actually helping people get to products more quickly than they might get through browse-based experience. So I think there is some, so even if click-through rates, I'd be curious, like for even some of those, like how they're doing from a conversion perspective. But the big thing for me is I think the future is going to be the kind of the best of both worlds. Like that's what I was saying earlier. I think like ChatGPT initially went and just started like putting product cards back, right? And then you go ask some follow-up questions, then like, like I got to scroll back up to go look at the product cards. Like there's also a reason people like Pinterest, right? And there's a reason that people like TikTok. And so you're starting to see Perplexity, ChatGPT, like and others, like build out these side-by-side experiences. Like Daydream just opened up their beta today as well. And they have this very visually rich experience on the right. and then they have chat on the left, so that you can go kind of do the fun parts of shopping and browse. But then if you have a question, you can go do it. So I think that's one of the ways that commerce sites, I think, might be able to get over some of the hump. I think a lot of folks just went full tilt into conversation, and I think it missed out on a lot of the goodness and what people have been trained to do for the last 25, 30 years. And so I think sites that start to look at how do you build out more of that side-by-side experience, I think we'll start to get the best of both worlds and kind of get over some of the click-through rate humps and things like that.
Yeah, that was really thoughtful. And then the thing that I think of, I was thinking about kind of the puzzle you pose. Okay, so you're in ChatGPT, you get presented with a product link, you don't buy, you don't explore more. And then I think back to the data that I have access to, how a lot of the time people are just looking to answer questions. They're not looking to transact. They don't need to transact. An even more extreme case of this, one of the first personalization and ML engagements I did was with Toyota. I flew down to LA and I went to their North American headquarters, which at the time were in Torrance, which I like to call the armpit of LA. It's hot. Anyways, it's LA. LA can be beautiful, but not Torrance. But I spent some time in their headquarters there, and the thing that's really interesting about buying a car from buying other things is you only do it really occasionally. So our traditional idea of a conversion isn't really applicable there. It's really more of a micro conversion. Did you advance them through the buying process? And so what I'd be really curious with that set of metrics that you were looking at, it might be that the GenAI capability was really successful in completing the step in the buying process that the user wanted to make, and that step wasn't a purchase yet. Because, I go to Google when I want to buy things, but also when I want to research things, and I really go to GenAI when I want to research things. So maybe we just need a different measure, not how many people click through to the web page, but do we have some way to ascertain, did the user successfully complete the step in the buying journey that they wanted to complete? And if that's the case, maybe not clicking through is a success.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I just want to add one last thing. It's interesting because I'm talking with one of our customers right now, kind of about something very similar to that, about how they can be optimizing their site. So they create a lot of content and sell books and things like that. And one of the things I was talking about, yes, of course, the holy grail is that you convert and you sell a book. But we all know that, your conversions are for any company for that matter, is going to be, minimal. So if you can get them to take any sort of action on the product page, whether that is they, became a member, or they watched a video, or maybe they watched an educational material, or downloaded a podcast, or did basically any other action, we can actually attribute some value to that. And then also measure that versus the next action they take next time, whether that is they do in fact convert on that book, or maybe they take another action and they engage somewhere else. Where being able to understand that becomes really important.
I think we can come up, but I just wanted to piggyback on. I think one of the things that we're spending a lot of time is, do the traditional funnel metrics apply in conversational commerce? And to your point, like I said, a lot of what we see people looking at is just advice for how to use a product. So part of what I'm thinking about is hey, if someone comes and asks how to apply makeup that they just bought, right? If I can help answer them, and I help build trust with them, and I see them have a repeat shopping intent in the following week, and in the following week after that, cool. Maybe I didn't need to go we would traditionally do and be hey, you wanted help with this makeup. Here's, a concealer you might go buy too, right? But that's typically what would end up happening. So I think that's another thing, as you're thinking about some of this, I do think at the end of the day, you do need to go sell stuff if you're a brand and a retailer. But I'd also encourage folks to think about, maybe the traditional funnel doesn't 100% apply. Right. And maybe with some of these things, it's more of about that repeat engagement over time, building trust. And then who knows, maybe they actually end up making 20 more purchases, right? 6 months down the road, because of you were able to build that relationship with them, really get to understand them, anticipate their needs. And so anyway, just something to think about. I don't know what the right answer is, but that's some of the stuff that we're trying to push on and figure out ourselves right now.
That's really good, Larry.
Love it. Anybody else have a last question? Oh, we got a bunch of questions. Oh, great. All right, come on here real quick and.
I think we talked about AI in commerce from the user's perspective quite a lot. I have a question from the business perspective. AI, as we train them, right? They are grounded by what kind of data we feed them. And in many cases, we have a lot of bigger brands and less about, say, smaller local brands. Do you think that the agentic or the conversational AI in commerce help level the field between bigger brands and smaller local businesses in retail? If not, then how SMBs in retail do differently that can help them tap into the potential of AI and provide the best user experience? That's my question.
Wow. Well, that's a great question. So, does AI help level the playing field for local brands? And the first thing I think about is no, unfortunately. When I think about Amazon, there's certain products that tend to get commonly recommended for certain categories, and those things tend to get bought again and again and again and again. So with something like Amazon, we see kind of a concentration of purchasing towards certain products and certain categories. I think the same thing. If the world is going to chat GPT for product recommendations, it stands to reason that some things are going to get recommended more than others, and so there's going to be a concentration. So if we start by saying the answer is no, and then furthermore, that's probably undesirable, then we might think about, well, how could we do something different? And, I think a model that's interesting is some stores and some businesses do sort of local flavor programs where they intentionally bring in the local items instead of the big brands. I mean, maybe there is a world where there's a localized chat GPT, or a localized shopping experience that does prefer things that are geographically close to you or ideologically similar to you. Or maybe it's going to become the work of, TikTok or Instagram to highlight those things that are new and different, but aren't sort of the average of everything else. So I guess my initial thought on that is ChatGPT is going to drive us towards the middle of the bell curve, towards the average, and so we'll probably have to intentionally fight that somehow. Anything to add, Larry?
I'll take it a half. I'm going to say maybe. You have no. Maybe you can bring up with yes. But I think for me, it's maybe. And the reason why that is, I think the companies that are building on top of these models or are building out the models themselves, like they need to be opinionated, right? Like I can have our LLMs go favor big brands, or I can help it favor direct-to-consumer brands, or I can help it favor niche brands. Like at the end of the day, like in some cases, the model is going to go do, based off of what we want it to go do. And so I think it's going to be up to companies in some cases to be opinionated. Like, do I want to go favor the Amazons, the eBays, the Walmarts and surface that? Do I want to be able to help, like stick up for the SMBs and help people discover new brands? So that's kind of one part of the maybe. I think the other thing for me is it's going to depend on how well companies personalize the experience, right? Like some people are totally happy shopping at Amazon and Walmart. Great. Like that's who should go and who should be surfaced for them. And there are other folks that pride themselves, right, at shopping at niche brands or brands that, align with their values. And so I think also how good of a job companies do with really understanding you and what it is that you're looking for from a shopping perspective, I think, will help SMBs potentially more or less, with that. So.
Yeah, I would say that every version of the internet that came out, strictly from a brand perspective, the brands that adopted that technology won out, right? So like when e-commerce first happened, you had brands that were like, we're not going to sell online. Like, why would I do that, right? And you even had brands that said like, we're going to so much bet against selling online that we're going to double down on our stores. And so some of them might have done well in the immediate time, but if they did that wrong, AKA a company like Sears decided to double down on their stores and then didn't do a great job on the way they doubled down on their stores. Of course, they did enter e-commerce. They just didn't enter it as strong as they could have. That was maybe the beginning of the end for Sears. And I always like to remind Sears was Amazon before Amazon. You could literally buy a house in the Sears catalog. There's houses in Capitol Hill that are from the Sears catalog.
Wow.
So you could buy anything you want through that. So, and then you think of mobile, think of social. The brands that adopted mobile and social did well, and the brands that were against it did not. And most recently, we've had this user-generated content that has happened with TikTok, and you had brands also fight that. Like, why am I going to sell on TikTok? Now we see the brands that are selling on TikTok have done really well, or some of these social channels. You have whole brands that have started from zero, SMBs, doing millions of dollars as a result of taking on these new channels. So while I don't think it'll level the playing field, I do think any small business that takes this on will only benefit them as a result. And I think, unfortunately, if you avoid any new technology for that matter, you're going to be most likely to be left behind. So whether it's yourself as the business owner, you bring in someone to help you, you do need to be thinking about these different waves, so that way you can make sure that you are progressively moving on to the next phase and continuing. There's a couple other hands raised. Okay, so we'll have you two be the last two. So if someone wants to come up, and then we'll wrap up. So why don't you start, and then we'll go with you next.
Hey, I'm actually working in the interjunction of agent and subscription, the topic that we discussed. I have a different topic from a brand perspective. One of the challenges that I see today, if I have to truly build an agentic workflow, brands have spread across SaaS tools. The data is fragmented, and it's very hard if I have to truly build a valued agent that can give the maximum outcome. So where do you see brands going from there to this? Because they look at agent as another SaaS product rather than as something that can become an operating system for them. How do you see brand taking those perspectives, and do you see brands getting AI ready or agent ready?
You're helping one do it, so
yeah, sure. It's a super important question, and I think the current iteration of AI that we have today, I like to say you have to make your data estate AI ready, and there's a lot of things that go into that. But for the early prototypes that I've built or released to production, it usually means sort of building a purpose-driven data mart. And over time, that might start to encompass data from 7 different systems. And so I think, unfortunately for AI today, people will have to do this data engineering work probably to pull these disparate data sources together and make it available in a really low latency way. And that's a data engineering challenge. So if you're trying to understand how to do that, I think finding some best practices to do that and some patterns is really helpful. There is a technology from somewhere in Microsoft that's supposed to do some of that for you. I think it's called OmniGraph. I don't know, Pavan, do you remember the name of it? Okay. I know it's old news, but there is a system called GraphRag, and it's got some supporting technology that attempts to help you do some of this in an automated way. So look into GraphRag from Microsoft, and then also see what competitors emerge, because it's a problem everyone's having. So pretty soon we should have some best practices for it, but there aren't a lot yet today.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be hard. I mean, like, I talk to a lot of retailers that are still trying to figure out how to personalize their experience. And we've been talking about personalization for 10, 15 years. And so trying to go and, like, when companies are wrestling with that, and companies are wrestling with, like, the basics of knowing whether or not, like, stuff is actually in stock, to go all the way to the, so I think it's going to be a long road. Like, I don't think there's going to be any quick fixes there. I do think, though, like, I think it's an interesting, and there's folks that are doing, I think it's an interesting startup opportunity, right? Like, and there are a lot of folks that are out there today that are helping, whatever, enhance your product catalog and help translate, like, the way that we typically manage product catalogs with attributes into what folks are actually saying about them. So I think brands themselves, it's going to be a long road, but I also think it's an interesting opportunity from a startup perspective. Can you actually go and build out tools that help retailers and brands get AI ready more quickly? So.
Okay, last question.
Probably more direct. Agentic commerce, agent-to-agent stuff.
Yep.
Who do you think ultimately owns the customer experience in the end? A year from now, 2 years from now, is it, am I gravitating towards Amazon or Nordstrom and they have a great thing and they know everything about me? There's a big vector database with all of my, my diploma in it and my birth date and my measurements and everything. Or does it become a feature of a personal assistant, more like ChatGPT or maybe Copilot?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. Honestly, I think when it comes to like the ChatGPTs, the Perplexities, et cetera, I think you're going to see folks take different stances on that. Like from Microsoft's perspective, as I go talk to retailers and brands, like the thing that I tell them is it's your customer. Like, yes, it's also like we're helping them, but at the end of the day, like we know how critical it is for retailers and brands to have that relationship with a customer, and we don't want to get in the way of that. Versus like Perplexity, like, when they rolled out, right? Like they went and started purchasing on behalf of consumers on retailer site and anonymizing users. And so the retailers lost. So, and it could be great from a business strategy perspective. Like it's all good, but that's right. I do think like different folks might end up taking different.
Then how is that not a race to the bottom?
Well, yeah, retailers.
What price can I get this item for? And just go get it on Amazon or Walmart or wherever. It doesn't matter what the item is. And there's no A/B testing. There's no user experience aspect that the merchandiser can do to it. It's just
So that's where though for me, I think that might be the case. So I was kind of getting at a little bit of who owns the relationship with the customer, but I think it goes back to me for that might end up being the case for more of the mundane parts of shopping, where it's a race to the bottom for the toilet paper and some of those different things. But like that's where like a lot of folks, I have a lot of people on my team I've hired in that are like fashionistas. Like they are never going to outsource their fashion shopping to an agent. Like they may eventually, like once they figure out exactly what it is, like go take care of. But so I do think that's where for me shopping, I think we sometimes think that it's going to become 100% agentic and it's only going to be my agent doing stuff and stuff's just going to automagically. And so that's where I kind of separate the shopping journeys out, and like there will be some of that stuff that's kind of more of the mundane, the easy, like, hey, just go get it done. But I think there's still going to be a good chunk of shopping that people just do because they want to go do, and an agent might help with aspects of that, but I don't see agents fully taking control of that. So, and then the other piece too is I think when it comes to the agent, I think price is going to be one aspect of it, right? Like at the end of the day, I think these agents are going to learn about what you as a consumer value, right? Like Amazon actually can charge higher prices now for some things, but people go by there. It's convenient, it's reliable, it's trustworthy. So I think that that's another piece. And so, yeah, there will be a pricing component to it, and there will be a race, as there always is with that. But I think these agents, when they do go and shop on your behalf and transact on your behalf, they're going to learn what you value in a brand, and part of that could be customer service, but also part of it could be identify with these certain sets of brands. Or I know people right now that aren't shopping at certain places because of the values that they have. So I think it'll be more complex than just like a bottom line or a race to the bottom in terms of pricing. So
no, I mean, I think when it comes from the brand side, right, like no brand wants to obfuscate their own customer, right? Like they want to make sure they have that relationship with the customer. Unless it relates to a lot more revenue or more volume. That's why no offense to Amazon, but that's why brands sell on Amazon, right? Like they don't own the Amazon customer. They don't own the relationship with their customers that they buy from Amazon, but they do it because you have to. You can't exist without selling on Amazon today. So I think on the AI side is if and when that moment happens, then like, yes, brands will have kind of like a multi channel strategy, and that being like one of those strategies. But I don't see a world, at least anytime soon, where a brand is willing to give that up.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. And Larry, loved your answer. For some stuff, I don't really care where it comes from, and some of that might be a race to the bottom, but sometimes I want that relationship with the brand. Like here in Seattle, I love to fly Alaska because I like the brand, I like the amenities, I like the whole package. So I'm willing to pay a little bit more to fly Alaska than fly some other airlines. And so I think with certain clothing brands and other things, there's places where people are really going to want to keep that relationship.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I feel like this is a conversation that we could just keep going and going and going.
Yeah.
And so we'll probably have to run this back at a later date. But thank you both for joining. What are some good ways that people can either stay in touch with you or keep up to date with the work that you're doing?
LinkedIn's great for me. You shoot me an invite, and happy to stay connected and answer any questions that people have.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn, and then I shamelessly post about the work that we're doing in shopping and also just in general with with LLMs and AI. So it's an easy way to kind of follow along with the work that we're doing.